What's going on, everybody? Today we're going to be installing a wing on this C7 here. Now, we just got back from the wind tunnel with this car, tested a bunch of setups and variations and everything. Once that video is available, that will be linked below as well if you want to see the wind tunnel video. We will also be doing an install video on the splitter. That'll be a separate video since it's a whole separate part as well. So I would like to kind of have, every piece of the wing kit set out nicely to show you everything. But the timing on this car, I gotta kind of just hurry up, hustle, and get it done. So we're gonna jump right into it. The kit will come with these three pieces here. So you have your two, what we call the main chassis brackets, and this center cross brace right here, and you can see you just bolt them together and you're done with that. Now, obviously you need to remove your rear bumper cover. There's plenty of videos on exactly what screws to get to remove a bumper cover, so we're not going to cover that. I'm going to assume if you're doing a wing kit install, you have the skills to remove a bumper cover. Now, this car did have another company's wing kit on it, so there might be a few extra holes that your car will not have. But the first thing you're going to need to drill out, on this car, there was a little rivet right there. I have to work under the assumption that those rivets are in the same spot on every car. This hole right here missed the rivet, and again was the hole drilled in that other wing kit. But this one was kind of touching it. So anyways, don't drill it there. Drill it where there's going to be a little rivet, and that is a 5/16. So obviously the kit will come with the correct hardware here. So you want a washer under the head and pass it through the holes you just drilled. You're going to add another washer in there, and then these aluminum spacers here. Right, so it should look like this when you're done with them two sticking out. And the only note here is, let's say you get done the install and the holes that poke out of the rear of the bumper, if you want them to come out a little further, just add a washer or two right here, and that'll kind of push the bracket out just enough, just because your bumper cover could just sit on the car slightly different. So just remember that during install. You can always tilt it out if you need to. All right, so now these bolts are tight, so you can kind of see the chassis mount starting to come together. It's already pretty solid. The kit's going to come with 4 of these L brackets. Now you can see how there's a shorter side with just a 5/16 hole, and there is a longer side that will have a little bit of a slot. You want the 5/16 hole against the bumper beam and the slot coming out. All right, so you're going to use some M8 bolts. This one's just sitting in here under tension, and this is where we're going to mark where to drill. Oh, it's going to rotate on me. So anyways, once I have 2 hands, mark them. We're going to drill through, again with that same 5/16, drill through the entire bumper beam, and these 5/16 bolts will come from the inside out all the way through the bumper beam. All right, so we have the bottoms done. The 5/16 goes all the way through, and then we got a button head screw here. Let's see. I think you can see them. There they are, right there and there. And the reason we did this, it's a little more similar to the ZR1. Having the bolt spaced this way, I think gives you like a little more fore and aft stiffness from like the drag of the wing wanting to pull back. Or if you do a wing with like more setback, it is going to want to pull down like rearward of where it's going to want to pivot. So there you go. So pretty much chassis bracket setup is done. Now, one quick note on the whole pattern here, and the wing kit that was on it was a 9 lives. Now there's only so much room between like the tail lights, these little antenna things, but you want the uprights almost as wide as you can. When I originally modeled these, they landed very close to where the 9 lives holes were. So what I ended up doing was just tweaking our hole pattern to be the same as the 9 lives. What that allows you to do is, if you already have a 9 lives but you want more downforce or a carbon wing or whatever the case may be, you can get our wing and our uprights and attach them to your original 9 lives chassis mounts if you want. So that'll be a little bit of a cost savings if you want to upgrade to our wing. How that will work is I'll probably just have a selectable option saying like upgrading from 9 lives, I want to reuse chassis mounts. If you select that, it'll just knock the cost down to offset you not getting our chassis bracket. I hope that all should kind of make sense. All right, so now that the chassis brackets are on, we need to refit the, what is this, impact absorber. You can see kind of where it's touching, where we're gonna need to clearance it. So at this point, just pick your plastic cutting tool of choice. There is no metal cutting on this wing installation. A little bit of plastic around this, and you're good. I like these Ryobi multi-tools. They're pretty easy to clearance stuff. And anytime you're clearancing something, it's up to you how fine or just hack out a large chunk and one-shot it, or just kind of sneak up on it so you can kind of keep it kind of tight. Up to you at this point. All right, so now that the absorber is back on, again, chassis mount stuff is all done. Outside to outside of our chassis mounts is about 14 1/4. They're about 14 inches on center, 13 3/4 if you do inside face to inside face. So we'll use 14, simple math. So to find center line is easy. It's just right off the point of the emblem. So inside face, right about like 7 inches or so. Now the bottom slot, maybe come up from this body line about 2 3/4 of an inch. From the top side, let's see if I can come around here. Maybe come straight down off the top body line, maybe about 2 inches or so. So if you got to go back and rewatch this segment for measurements, just do those measurements. You know, there's your slot. Do it a little over 1/4 inch wide, maybe like 3/8 inch wide. You don't have to be ultra precise, because as you'll see when we finish this up, it's going to come with like a beauty ring or like a bezel that you're going to be able to put around here. So if your slot isn't perfect, that's fine. It'll look nice when it's all done. All right, so you can see we have our slots cut in the bumper. And now that we're looking at the back side of the bumper, this is a good chance to touch on the ZR1 style wing. Now I'll put a screen grab up where we did make the brackets that attach to the OEM ZR1 chassis mounts. But you can see how the non-ZR1 bumpers have this giant brake marker light under here. So you would have to kind of cut through brake light and everything. So hence why we went out the back of the car. So again, if you do have a ZR1 or you get the ZR1 chassis brackets, we do have an option for you as well, where, you know, the OEM kit kind of has like a bracket here that comes up out the top, not out the back. So I hope that all makes sense as to why we're going through the back of the bumper. But yeah, now that we're cut, let's get it on the car. All right, so once you get to this stage and you're happy with everything, you know, remember there was a previous wing installed on here, so the gaps are a little bit bigger than, you know, you would probably expect, but we give you a fairly generous, we're calling it a finishing bezel. So you're just gonna kind of like slip it over, and it's cut to be just wider than the mounts. You know, it has two-face tape applied to it, so it just sticks on. And it's also going to come with an alcohol prep pad. So just kind of alcohol prep pad where the two-face tape's going to stick them on, and then you're pretty close to finishing out. So if you do remove your spoiler and you have some two-face tape residue, it's that like foamy thick stuff. They sell a thing called an eraser wheel. I'll try and find one of these on Amazon and put a link in the description below. These things, let's see if I can set you up and show you real quick. You're gonna want your drill on the faster speed, and when you start going, you're gonna wanna make sure you move. You don't wanna stay in one spot. You can build up enough heat to just kind of burn the paint, but I'll show you kind of how it goes. Right, so you can see I kind of cleared up this area here. I got a little bit left to do. But it makes pretty quick work of it. And then at this point, this is just all dirt and grime that can then probably just be like polished off or something. So yeah, these little eraser wheels are pretty sweet. So again, I'll put a link down below to one of these things. All right, so now that we got the finishing bezels stuck on, look pretty good. I jumped to cleaning up the top of the car here. I originally told the customer you might want to see if there's some sort of like little finishing cap or something, or you could just maybe put some sort of like plug on there or something, but I don't think that looks too great. So I just figured, since we make these finishing bezels, why don't we make little finishing hole covers, right? You can see how I started polishing this area, you know, and it's coming out like really nice. So the same sheet that we laid up to cut these out of, you know, I just cut some of these guys out of. So little ones will go over there, you know, the same two-phase tape on the backside. The alcohol wipe that you wipe this with, once you kind of clean up all the dirt and grime stuck under your spoiler, you know, just kind of alcohol around it so that way they stick on, and it should be pretty easy. Now this is getting a little bit, I guess, beyond the scope of like a normal install, but again, since we have wind tunnel data of with and without spoiler, I highly suggest not running a spoiler. But I know some of you guys might want to keep a spoiler or have some sort of like really low spoiler, whatever the case might be. So these are not going to be standard. They'll just be like a little add-on, couple extra bucks. And we'll ship these with the wing kit, so that way you can do something like we're doing here, or kind of whatever you want. Something I forgot to mention as I'm coming across polishing it, again, this might be a little bit beyond the scope of some of your installs, but I figured it might be worthwhile adding. My buffer of choice is just kind of like a little air polisher with a wool pad and some buffing compound. I buy this in like a gallon, so, and then just transfer it to like a little squirt bottle. I'll put links to some of this stuff, like the eraser wheel I mentioned earlier, compound buffing wheel. So that way, if you are getting ready to do the install, you can kind of, you know, get everything ready. So as soon as the wing gets there, you know, you just knock it out and you're done. All right, so now that we polished the top and got the, I think we're just calling them hole covers, hole caps on, I jumped ahead and installed the one upright. Now this is where I think we have something pretty unique going on. This bracket right here, I'll show you. If you remove this quick pin, the whole wing is going to be able to tilt rearward enough to clear the hatch opening and closing. So again, just remove the quick pin, the whole wing will tilt back and you're good. Now let me be very clear here. This bracket, just for install purposes and R&D, it is still raw aluminum. These will come powder coated black on the production pieces. And installing it is pretty easy. I kind of pokey-okied it to the point where this raised section here is very off-center. So if you installed it upside down, this wouldn't be anywhere close to fitting. So if you do kind of go to install it and it doesn't, you know, just slip in right there, you know, just flip it over and you're good. Pretty easy. Now you can also opt to forego the tilt back feature. And in that case, the uprights will just have 4 bolts and you just kind of bolt them right in and that's it, done. So you get to kind of pick and choose. Again, just like these cap covers, it'll be an option you can pick to add it or not. And then one last thing to note is these two in the middle are 30 millimeters. This guy on the bottom has a little sleeve on it, right? And that's kind of what bumps against here. So that way, if we didn't have like a stop and you tilted it back, the upright would just jam into your bumper cover. So that guy's the 25, 30, 30 and quick pin on the top. All right, so here we are, wing installed, and I think it looks pretty sick. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna set you guys up and we're gonna do the quick pins. I'm actually pretty excited. This is the very first time I'm doing it. I'm gonna record it. Let's see if it works as intended. All right, so pin 1, pin 2. I'm sure there's a little bit of tension. This one's a little bit snugger than the other side. You could probably also, you know, tweak it just a little bit to make it a bit smoother. Tilt the wing back. Boom. And then trunk will come down. Clears the wing. And we're good. So that worked pretty good. That's pretty cool. You can see how it still is fairly close to the hatch, and hence why this one is a bottom mount wing. If you're watching this in the future, we might redesign the bottom mount here to allow like a little more tilt back, because a top mount wing is a more efficient wing. So we will have a top mount option and we'll kind of tweak that as we go. This is literally our first variation of this wing. So again, future people, if you're looking at this wing and there's a top mount setup, we'll modify stuff to tilt back further to clear. But yeah, I'm super excited how all that works. Again, with your battery being back in this corner, you know, having that feature is probably pretty nice. If you're putting serious air on the car, you know, your car is probably a track car. You might like disconnect your battery if it sits for a while, or you have a cool suit or something. So having that trunk access, you know, definitely pretty nice. That will be a selectable option. So yeah, let's kind of tuck this forward, everything, and we'll close this video out. All right, so there we go, all finished. Quick pins in. They actually went in easier than kind of coming out. This one was maybe a touch tight. When you get the kit, you can either like remove this little ring if you want, or maybe like run it to a bolt or something on like a lanyard so you never like lose it or forget it. That's the only thing. Just like a hood pin, don't forget these if you get this option. All right guys, so that's where we're gonna wrap this one up. C7 wing kits, also C7 ZR1 upgrade wing kits are now available. They will be in the video description linked below. As always, thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you in the next one.